The vast darkness of space stretched before Commander Vexlar as he stood on the command deck of the Sovereign Claw *. His four eyes blinked in sequence as he studied the holographic display of the small blue planet. "Such a trivial world," he said. His voice was deep and raspy. "And yet they dare to spread to other planets in their system." Lieutenant Grekful bowed slightly. "Yes, Commander. Our scans show human settlements on Mars and Venus. They also have small bases on several moons of the gas giants." Vexlar's skin rippled with amusement. The Rakshi Imperium had conquered 17 star systems. These humans would be the 18th. It was the year 2187 by Earth's calendar, but to the Rakshi, it was simply the 394th cycle of expansion. "Show me their defenses," Vexlar ordered. The hologram shifted to display Earth's orbital platforms and defense ships. Primitive technology. Nothing that could stand against the might of the 8th Subjugation Fleet. "Their physical scans are most interesting, Commander," said the science officer. "Humans have approximately 60% of our muscle density and 70% of our skeletal strength." Vexlar laughed, a sound like stones grinding together. "Weak creatures. This will be a simple conquest." On Earth's primary orbital defense platform, Captain Jisoo squinted at the readout. The massive alien ships had appeared at the edge of the solar system 3 days ago. They thought they were being stealthy, but Earth's long-range sensors had detected them immediately. "They're moving closer," she said, brushing a strand of black hair from her face. Just as Admiral Hanjun predicted. Lieutenant Du-hyun nodded, his young face serious. "The Admiral's strategy is risky. What if they don't take the bait?" "They will," Jisoo said confidently. "Their scan patterns suggest they think we're primitive. We need to keep them thinking that way." The communication panel beeped. Admiral Hanjun's face appeared on screen. His gray-streaked hair and stern expression reflected 20 years of military service. "Captain, our fleet is in position behind the asteroid belt," he said. "Continue appearing vulnerable. Make them believe we've only detected their presence now." "Yes, Admiral," Jisoo replied. She turned to her communications officer. "Send the first contact alert." Act surprised and frightened. In his private laboratory on the lunar base, Science Officer Naeum carefully studied the data coming in about the alien vessels. The neural network was analyzing their energy signatures, communication patterns, and hull compositions. "Fascinating," she murmured. Her assistant, a young technician named Taiwan, looked up from his workstation. "Have you found something?" he asked. Naeum nodded. "Their ships use a radiation shielding that suggests their physiology is vulnerable to certain wavelengths of light. And look at these atmospheric readings from their smaller vessels. They breathe a higher concentration of nitrogen than we do." Taiwan's eyes widened. "That could be useful for developing defensive measures." "Exactly," Naeum said. "I'm transmitting this data to weapons development now. Keep scanning. I want to know everything about these aliens before they reach Earth." Commander Vexlar watched with satisfaction as the human orbital stations suddenly lit up with activity. Their primitive sensors had finally detected the Rakshi fleet. "They see us now," he said. "Their communications have become chaotic. They are panicking." His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Drex, stood at attention. "Shall we jam their signals, Commander?" "No," Vexlar said. "Let them communicate their fear to each other. It will weaken their resolve. Prepare a diplomatic vessel. I will send my demands for their surrender." Drex hesitated. "Is a full diplomatic approach necessary? Our initial scans suggest we could simply overwhelm their defenses." Vexlar's upper eyes narrowed. "The Imperium does not waste resources. We will follow protocol. Send the demands, allow them time to realize resistance is futile. Then begin the conquest with minimal forces." "As you command," Drex said, bowing deeply. In the secure underground command center beneath Seoul, Admiral Hanjun addressed the Joint Earth Defense Council. Representatives from every major nation watched as he explained the situation. The aliens believe their presence was only just detected, Hanjun said. This gives us an advantage. They don't know that we've been tracking them since they entered the Kuiper Belt. General Jaehwan, commander of Earth's ground forces, leaned forward. What do we know about their capabilities? Hanjun nodded to Naidong, who stood and activated her presentation. The aliens call themselves the Rakshi, she said. They are a conquest-oriented species that has taken over multiple star systems. Physically, they are stronger than humans, with 4 eyes, tough exoskeletal plates, and heightened reflexes. So they're superior to us, asked the representative from the African Union. Nayoung smiled slightly. In some ways. But they have weaknesses. Their eyes are sensitive to ultraviolet light. Their breathing apparatus suggests poor adaptability to atmospheric changes. And most importantly, they're overconfident. Admiral Hanjun continued. Our strategy is to play into that overconfidence. Captain Jisoo will receive their diplomatic vessel at the orbital platform. She will appear submissive and frightened, giving the impression that Earth is ready to surrender. Meanwhile, Hanjun pointed to the holographic display of the solar system. Our main fleet remains hidden behind the asteroid belt. The moment the Rakshi commit their forces to Earth's orbit, we spring the trap. The diplomatic vessel from the Rakshi fleet docked with Earth's orbital platform. Captain Jisoo straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. Remember, she told her staff, appear technologically inferior, act nervous but trying to hide it. We need them to believe we're no threat. The airlock cycled open. 3 tall figures entered the station. The Rakshi were impressive and terrifying up close. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, their gray-green skin was covered in natural armor plates. 4 yellow eyes blinked independently as they surveyed the humans. I am Emissary Krav of the Rakshi Imperium, the lead alien announced. His voice translator gave his words a metallic quality. I bring terms from Commander Vexlar of the 8th Subjugation Fleet. Jisoo bowed slightly, feigning nervousness. Welcome to Earth Station 1. I am Captain Jisoo. We are honored by your visit. The emissary's upper eyes narrowed. This is not a visit. This is a conquest. Your species will submit to the Imperium or face extinction. Jisoo allowed herself to swallow visibly. Perhaps we can discuss terms that would be beneficial to both our peoples. There is nothing to discuss, Krav said. You will surrender all military assets, provide access to all your resources, and accept Rakshi governance. You have 48 of your Earth hours to comply. As the alien spoke, Nayoung stood quietly at the back of the reception area, appearing to be a minor staff member. In reality, her augmented contact lenses were scanning the Rakshi, collecting biological data. The small device in her pocket analyzed their exhalations, skin particles, and electromagnetic signatures. We will need to consult with our world leaders, Jisoo said, her voice deliberately unsteady. Consult quickly, Krav replied. Commander Vexlar is not patient. Back on the asterisk, Sovereign Claw asterisk, Vexlar received the emissary's report with satisfaction. They are as weak as we expected, Krav said. Their captain could barely maintain composure. Their technology is functional, but at least 2 generations behind our own. Excellent, Vexlar said. Any signs of deception? None. Commander, they appeared genuinely frightened and outmatched. There was a science officer present who scanned us, but their technology is too primitive to learn anything of value. Vexlar's skin rippled with pleasure. Prepare 3 battalion ships for initial occupation. Target their major population centers. Once they see our ground forces, they will surrender completely. In the secure lunar laboratory, Nayoung excitedly shared her findings with Admiral Hanjun over an encrypted channel. The scans worked perfectly, she said. The Rakshi have several critical vulnerabilities. Their eyes lack protection against intense ultraviolet light. Their exoskeleton has weak points at the joint sections, And most importantly, their neural system appears highly sensitive to certain sonic frequencies. Han Jun nodded. Can we develop weapons to exploit these weaknesses in the time we have? Engineer Taiwan is already working on prototypes, Ne Young replied. We'll have them ready before the Rakshi realize they've been deceived. Excellent work, Han Jun said. Earth's survival depends on this information. The next day, 3 Rakshi ships descended toward Earth. One headed for Seoul, one for Beijing, and one for New York. From the asterisk Sovereign Claw asterisk, Vexlar watched with satisfaction. The humans are offering no resistance, Drex reported. Their military vessels are staying in dock. Their planetary defense systems remain powered down. As expected, Vexlar said. They know they cannot win. Once our troops are established on the surface, I will go down personally to accept their formal surrender. Deep beneath Seoul, Colonel Minho addressed the Special Forces soldiers gathered in the bunker. The men and women stood at attention, their faces determined. The enemy believes we are weak, Minho said. That is our greatest advantage. They're sending minimal forces because they think we're no threat. He gestured to Engineer Taiwan, who opened several weapons cases. These are prototype weapons based on Science Officer Ne Young's research, Taiwan explained. These rifles emit concentrated ultraviolet pulses that will temporarily blind the Rakshi. These sonic disruptors target their neural frequencies, causing disorientation and pain. Private Jin Woo, the youngest soldier in the unit, raised his hand. Sir, how do we know these will work? We've never fought these aliens before. Minho nodded. A fair question. Dr. Su Jin's AI has run thousands of simulations based on the biological data. The weapons have an 89% probability of effectiveness. That's not 100%, Jin Woo pointed out. Minho smiled grimly. In war, nothing is certain. But remember, they don't know we're ready for them. And they certainly don't know what humans are capable of when fighting for our survival. As the Rakshi landing ships touched down outside Seoul, Commander Vexlar received the initial reports. Human military forces are retreating from the landing zones, the ground commander reported. Some civilians are fleeing, others are hiding. No organized resistance. Proceed with establishing the command post, Vexlar ordered. I will arrive tomorrow with the main fleet for the subjugation ceremony. He turned to Drex. Prepare the fleet to move into Earth orbit. This conquest will be remembered as one of the easiest in Imperium history. If only Vexlar knew what the humans were planning. If only he understood the terrible mistake he had made in underestimating them. As night fell over Earth, the trap was set. The counterattack would begin at dawn. The first light of dawn broke over Seoul. The massive Rakshi command ship cast a long shadow over the city's outskirts. Alien soldiers patrolled the perimeter they had established, their weapons ready but held casually. They expected no real resistance. Underground, 50 feet below the city streets, Colonel Minho checked his watch. 1 hour until Operation Thunderclap begins, he told his team. Final equipment check. Private Jin Woo inspected his new weapons. The ultraviolet pulse rifle felt strange in his hands. It was lighter than standard military gear, built for speed rather than power. The sonic disruptor attached to his belt hummed softly. Will these really work against their armor? Jin Woo asked Engineer Taiwan, who was making final adjustments to the squad's equipment. Taiwan nodded confidently. Their exoskeletons are strong, but the joints are vulnerable. The UV pulse will blind them temporarily. The sonic disruptor targets their neural system directly. No armor can block it. Colonel Minho gathered the soldiers around a holographic display showing the Rakshi command post. Remember your training. Team Alpha will approach from the east, using the abandoned subway tunnel. Team Beta will come from the south through the storm drains. We strike precisely at 600 hours. On board the asterisk Sovereign Claw asterisk, Commander Vexlar prepared for his descent to Earth. He studied the reports from the 3 battalion ships with satisfaction. The humans offer no resistance, he told his officers. Their military leaders have requested meetings to discuss surrender terms. Pathetic creatures. Sub-Commander Drex approached with a data tablet. Commander, our ground forces report something unusual. Many of the human cities appear emptier than our initial population scans indicated. Vexlar waved a dismissive hand. They are hiding in fear. It is natural. Yes, Commander. Drex hesitated. But our scouts report that their military bases also appear largely abandoned. Where have their soldiers gone? For the first time, a small flicker of concern crossed Vexlar's mind. Increased scanner sensitivity. I want to know where the humans are gathering. In a hidden facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Su-Jin monitored her AI system as it processed data from around the world. Screens covered the walls, showing Rakshi movements, communication patterns, and tactical analyses. The prediction models are holding, she told Admiral Hanjun, who stood behind her chair. The Rakshi are following exactly the behavior patterns we anticipated. Hanjun studied the main screen, which showed a simulation of the coming battle. And your confidence level? 89% chance of success. Su-Jin replied. The Rakshi think in predictable patterns. They conquered so many weaker species that they follow the same playbook every time. Their overconfidence is their weakness. The Admiral nodded slowly. Let's hope you're right, because if you're wrong, humanity falls today. Lieutenant Du Hyun's stealth shuttle drifted silently through space. The black carbon fiber hull absorbed radar and lidar, making it nearly invisible to Rakshi sensors. 5 other shuttles moved with his, each carrying a 6-person team of Earth's most elite space commandos. Approaching target, whispered the pilot. Rakshi flagship dead ahead. No sign they've detected us. Do Hyun checked his oxygen level and the quantum disruptor devices secured in his pack. Each disc-shaped device was the size of his palm, designed by engineer Ta Won based on Nayoung's research. Remember, he told his team, we placed the disruptors at these 7 key points. He indicated locations on the holographic display of the Rakshi flagship. Once activated, we have exactly 10 minutes to return to the shuttles before the ship's systems detect the disruption. A young soldier named Hee-jun looked nervous. What if they catch us? Do Hyun's face was grim. Then we make sure the disruptors activate anyway. Earth's survival depends on it. In her laboratory on the lunar base, science officer Nayoung worked frantically to analyze the latest data from her spies on the Rakshi ships. Her assistant rushed in with a new sample container. We recovered this from the diplomatic vessel, he said excitedly. Actual Rakshi biological material. Nayoung carefully placed the sample under her microscope. What she saw made her eyes widen. Their cellular structure, she murmured. It's different from ours in a fundamental way. Their cells don't repair damage the way human cells do. They're stronger initially, but once damaged. She quickly typed commands into her computer, running new simulations. The results confirmed her theory. Contact Admiral Hanjun immediately, she said. I found another weakness. The Rakshi don't have our endurance or healing capacity. In a prolonged fight, we have a significant advantage they don't know about. Commander Vexlar's shuttle descended toward Seoul. Flanking him were 2 battalion ships and a protective escort of fighter craft. From the viewport, he could see his troops had established a strong position outside the city. The human leaders will meet us at their government building, Drex informed him. They are prepared to surrender formally. Vexlar's skin rippled with satisfaction. Excellent. Prepare the subjugation protocols. I want neural control implants ready for their key leaders. The rest will follow naturally once their command structure is under our control. The shuttle landed smoothly in a large plaza. Rakshi troops formed a protective corridor for their commander. Vexlar stepped onto Earth soil, his tall figure imposing in ceremonial armor. Bring me to these humans, he ordered. Let us complete this conquest quickly. High above Earth, Lieutenant Du Hyun's team had successfully attached 5 of the 7 quantum disruptors to the Rakshi flagship. They moved silently along the massive ship's hull, using magnetic boots to stay attached. 2 more to go, Do-hyun whispered into his comm. Team 2, status. In position at the engine sector, came the reply. Ready to place Disruptor 6. Good, Do-hyun said. We placed the final disruptors simultaneously on my mark. He checked his oxygen level again. 20 minutes remaining. Enough time to finish the mission and return to the shuttle, but only if nothing went wrong. In Seoul, Colonel Minho received the signal from Admiral Han-jun. The trap was ready to be sprung. All teams, prepare to execute Operation Thunderclap, Minho ordered. Wait for my signal. He watched through a periscope as Commander Vexlar strode confidently toward the government building. The alien leader had no idea that the surrendering human officials were actually holograms, projected from a secure bunker hundreds of miles away. Minho pressed his comlink. Lieutenant Do-hyun, status. Final disruptors in place, came the response, slightly distorted by interference. Ready to activate on your command. Minho took a deep breath. Commander Yuri, is your air squadron in position? From her stealth fighters circling high above the clouds, Commander Yuri confirmed. All fighters ready. Weapons hot. Admiral Han-jun, our ground forces are in position, Minho reported. From the Strategic Command Center, Admiral Han-jun surveyed the global tactical display. All elements were in place around the world. The hidden Earth fleet was ready to emerge from behind the asteroid belt. The ground forces were positioned to strike at all 3 Rakshi landing zones simultaneously. It was time. All forces, Han-jun said clearly, execute Operation Thunderclap. Now. As Commander Vexlar approached the government building, he suddenly stopped. Something felt wrong. The plaza was too empty. The human officials waiting for him stood too still. Drex, he said quietly, scan those humans. Before Drex could comply, the ground beneath them suddenly erupted. Hidden panels in the plaza slid open, and human soldiers in combat armor rose on platforms, weapons aimed. At the same moment, Lieutenant Do-hyun activated the quantum disruptors on the Rakshi flagship. The massive alien vessel shuddered as its shield generators suddenly failed. All across the ship, critical systems began to malfunction. In space, Earth's hidden fleet emerged from behind the asteroid belt, weapons charged and targeting the suddenly vulnerable Rakshi ships. Commander Yuri led her squadron of stealth fighters in a diving attack on the Rakshi battalion ships hovering over Seoul. Their specialized weapons, designed based on Nayoung's research, bypassed the alien shields and struck vulnerable points in their hull design. Vexlar stared in shock as chaos erupted around him. What is happening? He roared. Where did these forces come from? Colonel Minho stepped forward, his UV pulse rifle aimed at the Rakshi commander. You thought we were weak, he said calmly. You were wrong. The Rakshi troops raised their weapons, but before they could fire, sonic disruptors activated all around the plaza. The high-frequency sound was barely audible to humans, but it sent the Rakshi soldiers to their knees, their neural systems overwhelmed with pain. Vexlar alone remained standing, though visibly shaken. Impossible, he growled. Your species is inferior. Our scans confirmed it. Minho smiled grimly. You scanned our bodies. You didn't scan our minds. You didn't understand our history. Humans have been fighting wars against each other for thousands of years. We've become very, very good at it. In space, the battle was turning rapidly in Earth's favor. The human fleet, led by Admiral Han-jun's flagship, UES Indomitable *, surrounded the disoriented Rakshi vessels. Their shields disabled by the quantum disruptors, they were vulnerable to the specialized weapons Earth had developed. On the command deck, Admiral Han-jun watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Target the propulsion systems, he ordered. Disable, don't destroy. We want prisoners, not martyrs. Back in Seoul, Vexlar found himself surrounded as more human soldiers emerged from hidden tunnels and buildings. Private Jinwoo moved forward with restraints designed specifically for Rakshi physiology. You deceived us. Vexler snarled as Jin Woo cautiously approached. Yes, Colonel Minho acknowledged. Just as you plan to deceive us with your false diplomacy before enslaving our people. The difference is, our deception worked. As Jin Woo reached for Vexlar's arm, the alien commander suddenly moved with surprising speed. He struck Jin Woo, sending the young soldier flying across the plaza. Several other soldiers fired their UV pulse rifles, but Vexlar had already activated a personal shield device. You think you've won? Vexlar growled, backing toward his shuttle. This is merely the beginning. The Rakshi Imperium will send more ships, more soldiers. Your planet will burn for this insolence. Colonel Minho remained calm. Perhaps, but they'll send them after they learn what happened to you, and by then, we'll be ready. Vexlar managed to reach his shuttle, fighting off the human soldiers who tried to stop him. As the shuttle rose from the plaza, Commander Yuri's voice came over Minho's comlink. Target is escaping. Permission to destroy. Minho watched the shuttle accelerate upward. Negative. Let him go. Admiral Hanjun wants him alive to witness what happens next. Vexlar's shuttle docked with one of the few Rakshi ships that still had functioning systems. From the command deck, he watched in disbelief as the human fleet methodically disabled his once proud armada. How? He demanded of no one in particular. How did primitives defeat the 8th Subjugation Fleet? His tactical officer, bleeding from a head wound, looked up from the damaged console. Commander, we're receiving transmission from the human fleet. They're demanding our surrender. Vexlar's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of extreme stress in his species. For the first time in his long military career, he faced not just defeat but humiliation. And the worst was yet to come. The true nature of humanity was something Commander Vexlar was only beginning to understand. The revelation would be terrifying. Commander Vexlar paced the bridge of his damaged ship. Emergency lights cast red shadows across the faces of his surviving crew. Reports of defeat came in from all 3 invasion sites, Seoul, Beijing, and New York. His mighty Rakshi warriors were being defeated by the supposedly weak humans. How is this possible? He snarled at his tactical officer. They were supposed to be primitive. The tactical display showed the human fleet surrounding the remains of his once proud armada. 6 of his ships were completely disabled. 3 more had surrendered. Only 5, including his command vessel, still had functioning weapons and engines. Commander, Sub-Commander Drex said, his voice low, the humans are hailing us again. They demand we surrender or face destruction. Vexlar slammed his fist against the console. Never. The Rakshid do not surrender. Sir, Drex hesitated. They've disabled our main fleet. Our ground forces are being overwhelmed. Perhaps we should consider. Silence. Vexlar roared. Prepare to retreat. We will return to the Imperium and come back with a full invasion force. These humans will pay for their deception. Admiral Hanjun watched the tactical display on the bridge of the Asterisk UES Indomitable Asterisk. The Rakshi ships were gathering, preparing to make a run for deep space. They're planning to escape, Captain Jisoo said, now serving as Hanjun's second-in-command for the space battle. Hanjun nodded. Let them try. Lieutenant Do-hyun, are the tracking devices active? On a smaller escort vessel, Lieutenant Do-hyun checked his instruments. Yes, Admiral. When we placed the quantum disruptors, we also attached stealth trackers to their hulls. We'll be able to follow them anywhere they go. Good, Hanjun said. Let them flee. They'll lead us straight to their home systems. Jae-soo looked concerned. Are we just going to let them go? After all they've done? For now, Hanjun replied. We need to secure our victory here first. General Jae-won, what's the status of ground operations? From his command post in Seoul, General Jae-won reported, the Rakshi troops are in full retreat. They're trying to reach their landing ships. Our forces have them surrounded at all 3 invasion sites. Hanjun smiled grimly. Excellent. Keep the pressure on them. I want as many prisoners as possible for Science Officer Ne Young to study. In New York, Major Dong Huk led his troops through the streets of Manhattan. The Rakshi had established their command post in Central Park, and now they were fighting desperately to defend it. Forward, Dong Huk shouted, waving his soldiers toward the alien position. They're weakening. Beside him, Dr. Yunji adjusted her translation device. As the expert in Rakshi language, she had been assigned to his unit to help understand enemy communications. They're calling for evacuation, she told Dong Huk. Their ships are refusing to land because of our air defenses. Dong Huk grinned. Perfect. Commander Yuri's air squadron is doing its job. He picked up his communication device. All units, the enemy is trapped. Advance from all sides. Remember your training. Aim for their joint sections and use your sonic disruptors to maximum effect. The human soldiers pressed forward, firing their specialized weapons. The UV pulse rifles blinded the Rakshi temporarily, allowing soldiers to move in closer with sonic disruptors. When activated, these devices sent the aliens to the ground, their neural systems overwhelmed with pain. Dr. Yunji listened to the Rakshi communications with growing excitement. Major, she said, they're panicking. They can't understand how we're defeating them so easily. Let's show them something else they don't understand, Dong Huk replied. He handed her a small device. Broadcast this message I had you translate earlier. Yunji nodded and activated the device. Her voice, translated into the harsh Rakshi language, boomed across the battlefield. Attention Rakshi warriors, you have invaded our home. You threatened our people. For this, you will be defeated. Surrender now or be destroyed. This is your only warning. The effect was immediate. Several Rakshi troops threw down their weapons, overcome by the shock of hearing their own language from human mouths. In Beijing, a similar scene was unfolding. The Rakshi forces had barricaded themselves in a sports stadium, but they were running out of options. Human troops surrounded them on all sides, and the air was filled with the sound of Commander Yuri's fighters making strafing runs. Yuri herself led the attack, her fighter diving low over the stadium. Target locked, she reported. Firing EMP burst. The specialized electromagnetic pulse, designed to affect Rakshi technology without damaging human systems, lit up the stadium. The aliens' weapons and communication devices went dead instantly. On the ground, Chinese and Korean joint forces moved in. Private Jin Woo, having recovered from his injury in Seoul, was now part of the assault team. As they entered the stadium, they found the Rakshi troops disoriented and confused without their technology. Remember what Science Officer Ne Young said, Jin Woo told his squad. They rely too much on their tech. Without it, they're vulnerable. The human soldiers advanced cautiously, weapons ready. Some Rakshi fought desperately, using their natural strength and claws. Others surrendered, overwhelmed by the sudden reversal of fortune. Jin Woo found himself face to face with a Rakshi warrior twice his size. The alien charged, its armored body moving with surprising speed. Jin Woo sidestepped and activated his sonic disruptor. The Rakshi fell to its knees, all four eyes wide with pain. Not so tough now, Jin Woo muttered, securing the alien with special restraints. Back in space, Vexillar's remaining ships accelerated toward the edge of the solar system. Maximum speed, he ordered. We must reach the jump point. Commander, his navigator warned, the humans are not pursuing. This seems unusual. Vexillar stared at the tactical display. The human fleet remained in Earth orbit, making no move to follow. Perhaps they lack the capability for deep space pursuit, he said, but doubt crept into his voice. Or perhaps they don't need to chase us, Drex suggested quietly. Vexillar shot him a dangerous look. Explain. The humans have shown remarkable foresight in every aspect of this confrontation, Drex said carefully. They anticipated our tactics, countered our technology, and exploited weaknesses we didn't know we had. Is it possible they've planned for our escape as well? The commander's skin darkened, a sign of deep concern in his species. Scan our ships for tracking devices, he ordered. In her stealth fighter above Seoul, Commander Uri received new orders from Admiral Hanjun. The Rakshi command ship is trying to escape through our lines. He told her, disable it, but keep Commander Vexlar alive. Understood, Admiral, Yuri replied. She turned to her squadron. Form up on me. Target is the Rakshi command shuttle, attempting to reach the main fleet. Weapons set to disable only. Her 12 fighters accelerated upward, breaking through the clouds. The Rakshi shuttle was visible against the dark sky, racing for the safety of space. Target locked, reported her weapons officer. Ready to fire. Fire, Yuri ordered. Precision energy beams struck the shuttle's engines. The craft shuddered, then began to lose altitude. Direct hit, Yuri confirmed. The shuttle is going down, tracking its descent. On the ground, Colonel Minho received the coordinates of the falling Rakshi shuttle. It's coming down in the Han River, he told his team. Move to intercept. Commander Vexlar must be captured alive. His Special Forces unit raced to the riverbank. They arrived just as the shuttle splashed down, sending up a massive plume of water. The damaged craft floated for a moment, then began to sink. Prepare for underwater extraction, Minho ordered. Teams Alpha and Beta, deploy diving gear. Before they could act, the shuttle's hatch blew open. Commander Vexlar emerged, his massive form silhouetted against the setting sun. He held some kind of weapon, and behind him came 4 Rakshi guards. Hold your positions, Minho told his troops. He stepped forward, hands raised to show he was not an immediate threat. Commander Vexlar, your forces are defeated. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to interstellar protocols. Vexlar's laugh was harsh. You speak of protocols. After your deception. No, human. This is not over. The alien commander fired his weapon. A bolt of energy struck the ground near Minho, sending up a spray of dirt and stone. The human soldiers returned fire, their UV pulse rifles sending blinding light toward the Rakshi. Vexlar and his guards retreated into the city, using the buildings for cover. Minho led his team in pursuit. All units, he called into his comm device. Be advised. Commander Vexlar is on the ground and moving through the downtown area. All available forces converge on this location. At the Strategic Command Center, Admiral Hanjun received Minho's report with concern. We need Vexlar alive, he told his staff. He's the key to ensuring the Rakshi understand exactly who they're dealing with. Science Director Sang-hoon, who had joined the Admiral's team to provide scientific insight, nodded in agreement. The psychological impact of returning their defeated commander to them will be significant. It will make them think twice before attacking Earth again. Hanjun turned to Dr. Soo-jin, whose AI prediction systems had been so valuable. What does your model say? Where will Vexlar go? Soo-jin consulted her tablet. Based on Rakshi psychological profiles and the current tactical situation, there's an 83% probability he'll try to reach high ground. They evolved on a planet with many predators. Seeking elevation is instinctive when threatened. The En-Seoul Tower, Hanjun realized. It's the highest nearby point with a good view of the surroundings. He activated his comm. Colonel Minho, redirect your forces to the En-Seoul Tower. That's where Vexlar is heading. Commander Vexlar moved through the empty streets of Seoul, his guards forming a protective circle around him. The humans had evacuated this area before the attack began, which now seemed like an obvious clue that they had been preparing for battle all along. We need to reach higher ground, he told his guards. From there we can signal the fleet. One of his guards pointed to a tall tower on a nearby hill. That structure would serve our purposes, Commander. Vexlar nodded. Move out. Stay alert for human patrols. They made their way toward the tower, but the city was not as empty as it first appeared. From windows and doorways, human soldiers watched their progress, reporting their movements to Colonel Minho. "They're heading exactly where we predicted," Minho told Admiral Hanjun. "We have units in position around the tower. Should we intercept now or let them reach the top?" "Let them reach the observation deck," Hanjun replied. "I want Vexillar to see something before we capture him." Vexillar and his guards reached the base of the End-Sol Tower. The entrance was unguarded, which made the commander suspicious, but they had no choice but to proceed. They entered the building and found the elevator disabled. "We climb," Vexillar ordered. The Rakshi began ascending the emergency stairs, their heavy bodies making the metal steps clang loudly. Unknown to them, silent sensors tracked their progress, reporting to Minho's team surrounding the building. When they finally reached the observation deck, Vexillar moved to the windows. The panoramic view showed Sol spread out below them, and something else. Fires burned where Rakshi ships had crashed. Human military vehicles moved through the streets. In the distance, Earth defense ships descended from orbit, having secured victory in space. "It's over," came a voice behind him. Vexillar turned to see Colonel Minho and a team of human soldiers, weapons trained on the Rakshi. The guards raised their weapons, but Vexillar held up a hand to stop them. "You've lost, Commander," Minho said. "Your ground forces have surrendered. Your fleet is destroyed or captured. There is nowhere left to run." Vexillar's skin darkened with rage and humiliation. "How?" he demanded. "How did your species defeat the might of the Rakshi Imperium? You are weaker, slower, your technology inferior. Our scans confirmed it." Minho smiled slightly. "You're about to learn exactly why humans are more dangerous than you could possibly have imagined. And when we're done, you'll take that message back to your Imperium." "I will die before I become your messenger," Vexillar growled. "No," Minho replied calmly. "You won't. Because despite everything you've done, we're going to let you live. That's something else you need to learn about humans. We can show mercy, even to those who plan to enslave us." He nodded to his soldiers, who moved forward with restraints designed specifically for Rakshi physiology. "Your education is just beginning, Commander Vexillar," Minho said. "The true nature of humanity is something you're only starting to understand." As the sun set over Sol, the Rakshi commander was led away in chains, his once proud bearing now diminished by defeat. But the greatest shock was yet to come, when he learned exactly what made humans the most terrifying species in the galaxy. Commander Vexillar sat in a large room deep beneath Sol. His wrists were bound with special restraints designed for Rakshi physiology. 4 guards stood at the corners of the room, their weapons ready but not aimed directly at him. It had been 3 days since his capture at the End-Sol Tower. The door opened, and Ambassador Haijin entered. She was a small woman compared to Vexillar, but she carried herself with quiet confidence. Behind her came Admiral Hanjun, Colonel Minho, and Science Director Sanghun. "Commander Vexillar," Ambassador Haijin said, her voice calm and professional. "I am Earth's diplomatic representative. I'm here to discuss terms." Vexillar's upper eyes narrowed. The Rakshi do not negotiate with conquered species. Haijin smiled slightly. "But you are not the conqueror here, Commander. You are the conquered." She placed a tablet on the table between them. Images appeared in the air above it, a 3-dimensional display of the solar system. Small lights showed the current positions of all ships, both human and Rakshi. "Your invasion force has been completely defeated," Haijin said. "Of your 32 vessels, 18 have been captured intact. 9 were destroyed. 5 escaped, but we're tracking them." Vexillar's skin darkened with anger. "The Imperium will send more ships. Hundreds more. Thousands. You cannot hope to stand against our full might." Admiral Hanjun stepped forward. "That's what we need to discuss. You see, Commander, there's something you should understand about humans before your Imperium makes that mistake." Vexillar laughed harshly. "What could I possibly need to understand about a weak species like yours?" Science Director Sanghun placed another device on the table. This one displayed a rotating image of Earth alongside a planet Vexlar recognized, his own homeworld. "Let me explain," Sang-Hoon said. "You thought we were weak because your initial scans showed humans have less muscle density and skeletal strength than Rakshi. What you fail to understand is why." He adjusted the display, highlighting the two planets' gravity fields. "Earth's gravity is 1.4 times stronger than your homeworld," Sang-Hoon explained. "We evolved on what you would consider a high-gravity death world. Our bodies aren't weaker. They're more efficient, using less energy to achieve the same results." Vexlar's attention was caught despite himself. "That doesn't explain how you defeated our forces so easily." "No, it doesn't," Sang-Hoon agreed. "This might." The display changed to show cellular structures, Rakshi and human. "Your species evolved as apex predators," Sang-Hoon continued. "You're naturally strong, fast, with excellent reflexes and built-in armor, but you never faced serious competition or threats. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on a planet filled with predators that could kill us easily. We weren't the strongest, fastest, or best armored, so we developed other advantages." In another room, Science Officer Na-young watched the conversation through a one-way window. Beside her, Interrogator Jun-ho took notes. "Do you think he's understanding what Sang-Hoon is telling him?" Jun-ho asked. Na-young nodded slowly. "I think so. But the real shock is still coming." On the monitors around them, data scrolled from the examination of captured Rakshi soldiers and technology. The information they had gathered over the past 3 days had been invaluable. The Rakshi's biological and technological weaknesses were now fully documented. "We've learned more about their species in 3 days than they learned about us in months of observation," Na-young said with satisfaction. Their overconfidence was their greatest weakness. Back in the interrogation room, Sang-Hoon was still explaining to a increasingly disturbed Vexlar. "Human cells can repair damage much faster than Rakshi cells," he said. "We heal from injuries that would be permanent for your species. We can push our bodies past normal limits and recover afterward." The display changed again, showing the human running a marathon. "This is perhaps our most significant advantage," Sang-Hoon continued. "Endurance. A Rakshi warrior is faster and stronger than a human for the first few minutes of combat. But humans can keep fighting long after a Rakshi is exhausted." Vexlar shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "These are minor differences. The Imperium has numbers. We have conquered 17 systems with billions of warriors." Admiral Hanjun leaned forward. "And how many of those species fought back effectively? How many surprised you the way we did?" Vexlar's silence was answer enough. "Let me show you something else," Hanjun said. He took control of the display, showing images of human history. "This is our species, Commander. We've been fighting wars against each other for thousands of years. While you were conquering weaker species who couldn't resist, we were becoming experts at warfare against the most dangerous enemy possible, ourselves." The images showed ancient battles, then modern wars, advanced weapons, tactical displays, and training exercises. "Every weapon we used against you was developed in just 3 days, specifically designed to target Rakshi weaknesses," Hanjun explained. "Imagine what we could do with a year of preparation, or 10 years. Vexlar's skin had paled to a light gray, a sign of deep concern in his species. "You speak as if you intend to attack the Imperium." Ambassador Haijin raised a hand. "Not necessarily. We prefer peace, but we will defend ourselves, and now we know where your homeworlds are." Outside the room, historical archivist Maisuk prepared the final presentation. Her job was to document conflicts for future generations. The material she had gathered would show Commander Vexlar exactly what humans were capable of when truly threatened. "Is everything ready?" asked Na-young, joining her at the console. Maisuk nodded. "All the historical footage is prepared. It's not pleasant viewing." "It's not meant to be," Na-young replied. "It's meant to ensure the Rakshi never attack Earth again." Ambassador Haijin continued the negotiation with Vexlar. We have terms, Commander. We believe they are fair, given the circumstances. She slid a document across the table. Written in both human language and Rakshi symbols, it outlined Earth's demands. 1. The Rakshi Imperium will withdraw from all conquered worlds where the native species survives. 2. A demilitarized zone will be established between Earth's space and Rakshi territory. 3. Cultural and scientific exchange will be permitted, but no military presence. 4. Any violation of these terms will result in immediate human retaliation. Vexlar read the document, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. The High Command will never accept these terms. They would rather destroy your world. Before you make that judgment, Colonel Minho said, speaking for the first time since entering the room, there's something else you should see. The door opened, and historical archivist Mai Suk entered. She carried a small device, which she placed on the table. My job is to document human conflicts, she explained to Vexlar, to preserve the lessons of history so future generations don't repeat our mistakes. She activated the device. Images filled the air, vivid, terrible images of human warfare throughout history. The world wars, nuclear tests, chemical weapons, urban combat, guerrilla warfare, special forces operations. This is what humans do to each other, Mai Suk said quietly. Imagine what we would do to an external threat that endangered our entire species. Vexlar watched in growing horror as the images continued. Humans fighting in extreme conditions, Arctic cold, desert heat, underwater, in space. Humans continuing to fight despite terrible injuries. Humans developing increasingly sophisticated weapons and countermeasures. Your species, he whispered. You're monsters. No, Ambassador Haijin corrected. We're survivors. We've learned to cooperate despite our differences. We fight when we must, but we prefer peace. That's why we're offering these terms instead of pursuing your retreating ships back to your homeworlds. Admiral Hanjun leaned forward. Commander, you have a choice. Return to your people as our messenger. Explain what you've learned about humans. Convince them to accept our terms. Or, he let the sentence hang unfinished, but the implication was clear. In the tracking center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Su-Jin monitored the 5 Rakshi ships that had escaped Earth. They were moving toward a specific point in deep space, presumably a jump point to Rakshi territory. They'll reach their destination in approximately 6 hours, she told Lieutenant Du Hyun, who had joined her team after his successful mission to place the tracking devices. And our fleet? Du Hyun asked. In position but maintaining distance, Su-Jin replied. They don't know they're being followed. She studied the display thoughtfully. The question is, what will they do when they reach Rakshi space? Will they return with a larger fleet, or will Commander Vexlar's message convince them to negotiate? Do Hyun smiled grimly. After what he's learning right now, I think they'll choose negotiation. Back in the interrogation room, Vexlar had fallen silent. The images of human warfare had affected him deeply. Finally, he looked up at Ambassador Haijin. You could have destroyed us completely, he said slowly. Why didn't you? Because that's not who we want to be, Haijin replied simply. We defended ourselves, yes. We'll fight when threatened. But our goal isn't conquest or destruction. It's survival and progress. We would rather have the Rakshi as neighbors than enemies. Vexlar was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, in 17 conquests, no species has ever defeated a Rakshi fleet. No species has ever offered terms to us. Always, we dictated terms to them. Perhaps that's why you weren't prepared for us, Science Director Sang-hoon suggested. You expected another easy victory. There is nothing easy about humans, Vexlar said bitterly. Admiral Hanjun nodded. Remember that when you return to your people. Vexlar's head snapped up. Return. You're allowing me to leave. Of course, Ambassador Haijin said. You're our messenger. How else will the Rakshi Imperium learn what happens when they attack Earth? 2 days later, Commander Vexler stood on the landing pad at Earth's primary spaceport. His restraints had been removed. His wounds had been treated. He had been given back his uniform, cleaned, and repaired. Before him was a small Rakshi shuttle, one of those captured during the battle. It had been repaired and fueled for a long journey. Admiral Han-jun and Ambassador Hai-jin stood nearby, along with Colonel Min-ho and several other human officials. The shuttle is programmed with coordinates to rendezvous with your retreating ships, Han-jun explained. They've been instructed to wait for you. The terms we discussed are loaded in the ship's computer, officially translated into your language. Vexler looked at the humans warily. And if I choose not to deliver your message? If I recommend full-scale war instead? Ambassador Hai-jin smiled slightly. That is your choice, Commander. But I think you know what would happen. You've seen what humans are capable of when threatened. And now you understand why we're so dangerous. Vexlar was silent for a moment. Then he said, in all our conquests, we believed we were the superior species. We thought our strength, our technology, our empire made us invincible. He looked at each of the humans in turn. We were wrong. There's no shame in being wrong, Min-ho said, only in failing to learn from it. Vexlar turned and walked toward the shuttle. At the hatch, he paused and looked back. You know we could return with thousands of ships. We could darken your skies with our armadas. Admiral Han-jun nodded calmly. You could try. The certainty in the human's voice sent a chill through Vexlar's body. Without another word, he entered the shuttle. The hatch closed behind him. As the ship lifted off, Admiral Han-jun watched it rise into the blue Earth sky. Do you think he'll deliver our message? Ambassador Hai-jin asked. Yes, Han-jun replied. Because now he knows the truth about humans. We're not the prey species they thought we were. We're apex predators who had forgotten our nature until they reminded us. 3 weeks later, a Rakshi diplomatic vessel approached Earth's orbit. It transmitted a single message. We accept your terms. In the command center, Admiral Han-jun allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. Earth was safe. Humanity would continue to expand into the stars, not as conquerors like the Rakshi, but as explorers and defenders. And throughout the galaxy, word would spread of the terrible truth. The species called humans, from the high-gravity death world called Earth, were the most terrifying beings in the universe, not because of their strength or their technology, but because of their endurance, their adaptability, and their determination.